It's July 2024 and Port-au-Prince is under siege. Gangs armed with automatic rifles and makeshift armored vehicles stormed police headquarters and government buildings in a coordinated attack, bringing Haiti's capital to a violent standstill. Overwhelmed and outgunned, police officers abandon their posts. Streets become battlegrounds, littered with burning barricades, and gang leaders like Jimmy Barbecue Charazé openly declare themselves to be Haiti's real authority. Hospitals are shut down, markets close, and terrified families barricade themselves indoors. Haiti, already teetering on the brink of collapse, descends into total chaos. But how did we get here? In this video, we're going to be analyzing Haiti's collapse using the PMESII-PT framework to deeply understand how Haiti became a failed state and what can be done to fix it. If you're familiar with this channel, then you've probably watched some of my recent videos lately, so you're familiar with what the PMESII-PT framework is. And if you're going to watch this video, then you're going to find out here pretty soon. Today, Haiti is not just broken, it barely functions as a country at all. Politically, there is no elected government or president. Militarily, gangs dominate the country, controlling entire neighborhoods and infrastructure. Economically, Haiti faces crushing poverty and dependence on external aid, while socially the country suffers from displacement, trauma, and deep distrust of both national leaders and foreign investment. Information flows are totally disrupted and weaponized, infrastructure is in complete shambles, and the physical environment repeatedly devastates the fragile nation through earthquakes and massive hurricanes. And time is running out as each day deepens the political crisis. And this chaos inevitably will pull the United States into Haiti once again. Only 700 miles from Florida, Haiti's instability is a humanitarian nightmare and is a security threat to the United States, especially when factoring in the risks of drug trafficking and human trafficking. But does this proximity mean that America alone must step up again in Haiti? Is the U.S. even capable of stabilizing Haiti unilaterally, or do they run the risk of repeating previous interventions? The U.S. may have the resource and logistical capability to intervene, but history warns us that things are not that simple. We're going to be exploring this question even more in this video, and as you can probably tell, just looking from the timestamp, this is the longest video that I've ever made. So this is an absolute beast of a video, not just for me to make myself, but for you to watch. So leave a like if you're interested in that, and if you plan on sticking around at least halfway, that'd be great. But watch the whole thing because there's so much information in this video. But bottom line, at the end of this video, we're going to be answering, can America fix Haiti, or would another intervention just make things worse? And ultimately, why something has to be done. But before we do all that, there's a word from today's video sponsor, and that's me. I'm launching a Patreon to support this channel. This will help me to pay for video editing and other key capabilities that help me to grow the quality of these videos and potentially one day the quantity of these videos. And because of that, I'm not going to ask for donations here. And yes, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee if that's interesting to you. I don't market that because I would rather just provide some sort of additional service in return for your support. And that's all in addition to the free YouTube content that I'm making here right now. This, of course, takes me to the Patreon, where my members will receive weekly intelligence reports made by me on the top 5 international stories from the previous week. The analyst tier will receive this report, as well as receiving access to my videos early and weekly recognition at the end of every video. The senior analyst tier will receive all of those benefits, and they will also receive a monthly priority topic request that will be covered in greater depth in the following weekly report. So if you are somebody that's planning to travel somewhere and you want to know about the security situation in that place, or you have a business interest somewhere, or you're just curious about something, you can pop that question or that topic request into the membership. I'll do some research on it and I will present it in the next report for the group. I'll probably be adding more features to this in the future as we move along, but this is what I'm starting with right now. New analyst members will receive their first 7 days for free, so you can kind of see what we've got going so far and see if this is something that you're interested in before you actually commit. Check the link to the Patreon down in the video description for more. With all that, back to the video. Of course, like past videos, we're going to front load the physical layer because I think that gives us a lot of context that's helpful for the rest of the video. And just so you know, I'm reading notes below the camera, so if you see my eyes kind of drifting, that's just what's going on. I've been doing this for the past several videos, but I just wanted to make that clear. Haiti occupies the western third of the Caribbean islands of Hispaniola, sharing a long and frequently tense border with the Dominican Republic. Covering roughly 27,750 square kilometers, Haiti is predominantly mountainous, with rugged terrain covering about 60% of its total landscape. Its highest peak Peak LaSalle rises approximately 2,680 meters, that's about 8,793 feet, above sea level. This mountainous terrain severely limits both agricultural productivity as well as transportation networks. It also isolates communities from vital services, significantly impeding economic development and effective governance. Additionally, Haiti has faced severe environmental degradation due to rampant deforestation. Currently, Haiti retains only around 1.5% forest cover, which is down from 60% in 1923. This extensive deforestation has exacerbated soil erosion and reduced agricultural productivity that drastically has increased the country's vulnerability to things like flooding, landslides, and other kinds of environmental hazards. Haiti's geographical location places it directly in the path of other natural and frequent disasters, particularly earthquakes and tropical storms. The devastating 2010 earthquake with an estimated magnitude of 7.0 resulted in approximately 300,000 deaths and left over 1.5 million people homeless. Infrastructure and government functions were largely obliterated, crippling an already fragile state. A subsequent earthquake in August of 2021, measuring a magnitude of 7.2, killed more than 2,200 people, displaced tens of thousands, and damaged or destroyed over 137,000 homes. The island's vulnerability to hurricanes further complicates these challenges. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew, a Category 4 storm, struck southern Haiti, killing over 1,000 people and displacing tens of thousands. This event destroyed agricultural livelihoods, exacerbated food insecurity, and further entrenched poverty. Haiti's inadequate urban planning and widespread informal settlements amplify destructive impacts of such events, and this creates a perpetual cycle of crisis and recovery. Haiti's tropical climate is categorized by considerable vulnerability to extreme weather conditions, including severe droughts and flash floods. Climate change has intensified rainfall unpredictability, directly impacting the agricultural sector, which employs approximately 2/3 of the population. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, or the FAO, over 4.9 million Haitians, that's nearly half of the population, currently face acute food insecurity, driven largely by recurrent crop failures and livestock losses stemming from climate-induced disasters. This ongoing environmental crisis directly fuels internal migration patterns, which pushes rural populations into overcrowded urban areas like Port-au-Prince. These rapidly growing urban slums become fertile recruitment grounds for gangs, further exacerbating the instability and undermining government control. The rugged, mountainous terrain severely restricts law enforcement and military mobility, significantly hampering efforts to maintain security and deliver humanitarian assistance. The poor condition of Haiti's roads, and we're going to talk about all of this later on in this video as well, but only around 20% of Haiti's roads are paved, and this renders large sections of the country nearly inaccessible for emergencies. The physical isolation leaves many rural areas undergoverned and entirely lawless, allowing armed groups, especially gangs, to thrive, especially within Port-au-Prince and within the crowded slums and isolated rural communities. Gangs exploit these geographic and infrastructural weaknesses, exerting control through roadblocks, extortion, kidnappings, and effectively creating ungovernable enclaves resistant to state authority. Geographically, Haiti's proximity to the United States, approximately 1,700 miles from Florida's coast, has elevated its strategic significance to the United States significantly. Instability in Haiti can rapidly lead to refugee flows, exacerbating humanitarian crises and migration pressures on the United States. Additionally, Haiti's location along key Caribbean shipping routes enhances its geopolitical relevance. Unchecked, Haiti has become a hub for drug trafficking, human smuggling, and organized crime, potentially attracting involvement from external actors, including rival nations or even transnational criminal networks like drug cartels. Simply put, Haiti's geography doesn't do it any favors at all. Yet it also makes Haiti very important to countries like the United States in terms of security and trade. The U.S. simply cannot afford to ignore Haiti, and this is going to be a theme that we're going to see throughout this video. Haiti's political landscape presents one of the most profound examples of state failure in the Western Hemisphere, with deep historical roots and modern events that have culminated in nearly a complete breakdown in governance. The island of Hispaniola was originally inhabited by the Taino people before Columbus arrived in 1492. Within decades, Spanish colonialization decimated the native population through disease, warfare, and forced labor. The western third of Hispaniola, which is now Haiti, was ceded to France in 1697 through the Treaty of Ryswick. The French colony of Saint-Dominique quickly became one of the wealthiest colonies in the world, producing 60% of the world's coffee and 40% of its sugar by the late 18th century. This extraordinary wealth was built on one of the history's most brutal plantation slavery systems, with approximately 500,000 enslaved Africans working under horrendous conditions. In 1791, the Haitian Revolution began. It was the only successful slave rebellion in history to establish an independent nation, led by figures like Toussaint Louverture or Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and I'm pronouncing those as French as I could possibly make it sound. Haiti declared independence in January 1st of 1804, becoming the second independent republic in the Americas and the first black-led republic in the world. This revolutionary birth came at tremendous cost, though. France, under Napoleon Bonaparte, eventually forced Haiti to pay an independence debt of 150 million francs. That was later reduced to 90 million in 1838, and that's equivalent to approximately $21 billion in today's valuation, and all to compensate former slave owners for their property losses. This crushing financial burden took Haiti until 1947 to repay, and they did repay, and it fundamentally handicapped the nation's development. From its inception, Haiti faced international isolation. The United States did not recognize Haiti until 1862 after the Civil War had already begun, and Haiti also suffered from internal political turmoil. Between 1804 and 1915, Haiti experienced 22 different changes of government. The political system developed into a pattern where small groups of elites, often military leaders, competed for control of the state apparatus as a means of extracting wealth. This chronic instability led to the first major U.S. intervention, a military occupation that went from 1915 to 1934. While bringing some infrastructural improvements, this occupation reinforced centralized authority to Port-au-Prince. It also marginalized rural populations, and it further entrenched Haiti's dependency on external powers. The post-occupation period saw the rise of the Duvalier dictatorship. Francois, nicknamed Papa Doc Duvalier, ruled Haiti from 1957 to 1971 and established a totalitarian regime notorious for its brutality and the creation of the Tonton Macoute, I'm not even going to pronounce this right, paramilitary force. It's on the screen right now. His son, Jean-Claude, nicknamed Baby Doc Duvalier, ruled from 1971 to 1986, and he continued this oppressive rule until a popular uprising forced him into exile. Haiti's first true democratic election came about in 1990 and brought Catholic priest Jean-Bertrand Aristide to power with overwhelming popular support. However, his progressive agenda was cut short by a military coup just 7 months into his presidency, and this began a pattern of democratic backsliding that would characterize the next 3 decades. In 1994, the U.S. military would again intervene and restored Aristide to power. In 2000, Aristide was elected to a second non-consecutive term amid electoral controversies. In 2004, Aristide was removed from power following another coup, which was followed by UN peacekeeping. From 2006 to 2011, René Préval's presidency brought relative stability but very limited progress. And that takes us to the 2010 earthquake, which killed over 300,000 people and displaced 1.5 million people. And this, it cannot be stated enough, was absolutely catastrophic for Haiti. The disaster response was dominated largely by international NGOs, further weakening the state capacity and legitimacy. The post-earthquake period has witnessed an accelerating deterioration of Haiti's political institutions. For example, Michel Martelly had his administration from 2011 to 2016. He was a senior-turned politician with limited political experience. He governed increasingly by decree, and as parliamentary elections were repeatedly delayed. He left office, though, without a successor in place, and this created a leadership vacuum. From 2017 to 2021, you have the Jovenel Moïse presidency. He was elected with an extremely low turnout of just 21% after disputed elections. He faced massive protests in 2018 over the Petro-Carib corruption scandal. In January of 2020, he began ruling by decree after failing to hold parliamentary elections. He increased authoritarian tendencies, including attempts to rewrite the Constitution. And he was ultimately assassinated in July 7th of 2021. And that period on has ushered in a period of complete collapse of central authority. As of today, Haiti exists largely in a completely unprecedented governance void. There are no elected officials that remain in office. There's no president, there's no parliament, there are no elected officials. The acting prime minister, Ariel Henry, was appointed. He was not elected after the PMESII assassination. However, he stepped down in March of 2024 after being blocked from returning to Haiti following a trip to Kenya. A transitional presidential council was established in March of 2024 with international backing, but it has struggled to assert its authority. Elections have seemed completely impossible under the current circumstances, creating a circular crisis. No security without governance, no governance without elections, and no elections without security. In the meantime, the political vacuum has been filled by over 200 armed gangs that control approximately 80% of Port-au-Prince and significant portions of the countryside. This represents not just a security crisis, but a fundamental political transformation. Gangs have evolved from tools of political actors to independent power centers. Gang federations like G9 and PMESII-PT, and I'm doing my best on these pronunciations, so please be nice. This is led by former police officer Jimmy, nicknamed Barbecue Cherizier, and operates as a proto-state, collecting taxes, administrating rough justice, and providing basic services. Political figures historically have used gangs for electoral intimidation, territorial control, and even economic extraction. Evidence suggests that continued links between certain political and business elites and gang structures, though gangs now operate with unprecedented autonomy. Transnational connections to criminal organizations in Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, and other parts of Central America have provided weapons, funding, and operational support for these gangs. Still, Haiti's current political landscape cannot be understood fully without accounting for the external actors who have shaped its trajectory. Of course, you have to start with the United Nations. From 2004 to 2017, the United Nations Stabilization Mission of Haiti continued on after President Aristide's ouster. From 2017 to 2019, the UN continued on a justice support mission. And from 2019 to today, the UN continues a political mission, but with a very limited and narrow mandate. The UN missions have brought some level of stability, but also a lot of controversy, including a cholera outbreak that killed over 10,000 Haitians and numerous sexual abuse allegations. The core group, that is ambassadors from the United States, France, Canada, Germany, Brazil, Spain, the European Union, the United Nations, and OAS, has functioned as a de facto political steering committee, often determining which Haitian leaders should receive international recognition. And this has further undermined the perceptions of Haitian sovereignty within the country. In October 2023, the UN Security Council authorized a Kenya-led multinational security mission to Haiti. After delays, Kenyan police began deploying in June of 2024, though with very limited numbers thus far. And the mission continues to face some significant challenges. For example, there are limited funding and personnel commitments, questions about force composition and capabilities, historical memory of previous interventions that failed to build sustainable institutions, and resistance from Haiti's civil society and other groups that are concerned about sovereignty. The Haitian diaspora, which is approximately 2 million people that live largely within the United States, Canada, France, and the Dominican Republic, still exerts a significant amount of influence, largely through remittances. That's approximately $4 billion annually, which is also equivalent to 32% of Haiti's GDP, political advocacy in their host country, knowledge transfer and technical expertise, as well as increasing calls for additional diaspora participation in Haiti's political future. Systemic corruption in Haiti, though, has hollowed out Haiti's institutions and undermined public trust. From 2008 to 2018, Haiti received subsidized oil from Venezuela's Petro-Carib program, with payment deferred for 25 years at a 1% interest rate. This generated approximately $4 billion in funds meant for development projects. However, Haiti's Superior Court of Auditors documented that at least $2 billion of those dollars were misappropriated and diverted through inflated contracts, ghost projects, or even just direct embezzlement. Multiple Haitian administrators were implicated, including officials from both the Martellet and PMESII governments. When details became public in 2018, it sparked the Kotko Petwo Kariba protests, which, again, pronunciation, doing my best, which basically translates to "Where is the Petro Carib money?" It was a protest movement which fundamentally destabilized Moïse's presidency. Haiti's justice system has essentially ceased to function. The Supreme Court is incomplete, with insufficient justices for a quorum. Only approximately 1% of crimes result in a conviction. Court infrastructure was severely damaged in that 2010 earthquake and never fully rebuilt. The Court of First Instance in Port-au-Prince was seized by gangs, ironically, in March of 2023. And now case backlogs extend well over a decade, with pre-trial detention comprising of approximately 82% of the prison population. Haiti's political and economic elites operate largely without any kind of accountability. Few high-profile corruption cases advance to trial. Political leaders implicated in human rights abuses rarely face justice, and economic oligarchs maintain monopolies in key sectors like import-export businesses, telecommunications, and banking with very minimal oversight. Haiti's democratic infrastructure has deteriorated beyond recognition. For instance, there is no functional electoral council since 2018. The last parliamentary elections that were held in Haiti was in 2016. The last presidential election that was held with over 50% turnout was 2006. Electoral violence has become normalized, with candidates often being targeted. Voter registration systems are compromised by displacement and the lack of identity documents. Polling stations are inaccessible in gang-controlled territories, which was once seen as a democratic milestone, has been effectively suspended. PMESII attempted a controversial constitutional reform process shortly before his assassination, and there has been no clear constitutional succession procedure that is followed since PMESI's death. Legal scholars debate whether there is any current authority in Haiti that has constitutional legitimacy. Haiti's political crisis carries significant implications beyond just its own borders. Political instability and violence has driven unprecedented migration. Over 100,000 Haitians have been displaced internally. Substantial migration flows to the Dominican Republic, which has responded with mass deportations. Increasing Haitian migration to South America, Mexico, and the United States has also begun to take place, with growing pressure in the United States over Haitian migration, particularly in Florida and Texas. China has expressed interest in greater involvement in Haiti, which creates a lot of potential for great power competition over this island. Taiwan maintains diplomatic relations with Haiti, and Haiti is only one of 12 remaining countries that recognizes Taiwan. Russia has also expanded media operations targeting Haiti and the Caribbean, and the U.S. is concerned that this continued deterioration could create space for illicit transnational networks like cartels. The Dominican Republic has also militarized its border with Haiti, and Jamaica and the Bahamas are also facing increased migration pressures. However, bottom line, any political solution for Haiti must contend with several fundamental challenges. First of all, there is a legitimacy gap. No political actor within Haiti commands broad trust or constitutional legitimacy. There's also a lot of sovereignty concern. With external intervention comes reinforcing perceptions of international control, while non-intervention allows this humanitarian crisis to deepen. There are also several security governance paradoxes. Elections require security, but security requires legitimate governance. So which comes first? There's also a resistance from the elites. Powerful economic interests benefit from the status quo and may resist meaningful reforms. There's also an institutional void in this country. Basic state functions must be reconstructed almost from scratch after years of deterioration. This takes us to the Montana Accord, which is a civil society initiative that proposes a 2-year transitional government led by Haitians, and it represents one potential framework for reconstruction. However, implementation of this initiative remains elusive, especially as international powers have vacillated between supporting a Haitian-led initiative and imposing external solutions. The security situation in Haiti represents one of the most acute examples of state failure in the Western Hemisphere, characterized by the near complete collapse of legitimate security forces and the rise of armed non-state actors that exercise territorial control. The Haitian National Police, which was established in 1995 following the dissolution of the Haitian military, has deteriorated dramatically in recent years. They suffer from severe understaffing, currently estimated at approximately 9,000 active duty officers for a population of 11.7 million people. International security standards recommend a minimum ratio of 1 police officer to 450 citizens. Haiti's ratio is roughly 1 to 1,300. That's basically 3 times less than what they need. There are also some severe geographic limitations. According to a 2023 UN assessment, the HNP maintains effective presence in only 10 of Haiti's 145 communes. There are also significant resource deficiencies. Officers lack basic equipment, including vehicles, fuel, bulletproof vests, and ammunition. A 2023 Human Rights Watch report documented officers using personal vehicles for patrols and purchasing their own ammunition. There are also a lot of compensation issues for these police officers. Police salaries average between $250 to $350 monthly, often paid irregularly. And this has contributed to high desertion rates, with an estimated 1,700 officers resigning or abandoning their posts between 2021 and 2024. There are also some significant infiltration concerns. The UN mission in Haiti has documented at least 42 cases of police officers with confirmed gang connections between 2022 and 2024. That actual number may be significantly higher. At least 87 police officers were killed in targeted attacks between January of 22 and March of 24. And this is also according to the United Nations. The Specialized Unit for Border Surveillance, this is Haiti's Border Patrol equivalent, is similarly understaffed and under-resourced, with minimal capacity to monitor Haiti's 376-kilometer border with the Dominican Republic or its extensive coastline. The Haitian military, which disbanded in 1995 after decades of political interference and human rights abuses, was nominally reconstituted in 2017 under President Jovenel Moïse. It was only a token force, though, with approximately 500 personnel, primarily focused on engineering and disaster response with minimal combat capability. They also have very limited equipment. They possess only a handful of aging vehicles and light weapons, but no heavy armor, aircraft, or significant military hardware to worry about. There's also a legitimacy question. The reconstitution process occurred without comprehensive vetting or transparent command structures, and this raises concerns about the force's accountability. This also takes us to the irrelevance of their military in this current crisis. Their military has been largely absent from security operations against the gangs, functioning more as a presidential guard than an operational military force. But mind you, again, there is no president. The security vacuum created by the collapse of the state forces has been filled with increasingly powerful armed groups that have evolved into rather sophisticated paramilitary organizations. Security analysts believe that between 200 and 300 distinct armed groups are operating across Haiti, with the heaviest concentration of them being within Port-au-Prince. Approximately 80% of Port-au-Prince is under some form of gang influence or control, with complete gang domination in neighborhoods such as Cité Solier, Martesson, Croix de Bourget, and Bel Air. Conservatives estimate that total gang membership is somewhere between 15,000 and 20,000 active participants, exceeding the size of Haiti's legitimate security forces. Beginning around 2020, gangs began to form strategic alliances and federations, most notably G9 and Famille Alali. We're just going to call this G9, and in English it translates to G9 and Family and Allies, which, I mean, what the heck kind of name is that? And this is the gang that's led by Barbecue. It represents the most organized and politically vocal gang. This gang really comprises of 9 major gangs that are part of it, with territorial control across key parts of Port-au-Prince, within large neighborhoods, and particularly concentrating on port accesses. G9 explicitly frames itself as a revolutionary force, fighting oligarchic control, though evidence suggests that it's really just pragmatic criminal motivations that fuel this gang. Estimated between 2,000 to 3,000 armed members, largely with assault rifles, submachine guns, and some heavy weapons, though. And G9 controls key economic choke points, particularly around the port district and fuel terminals. You also have GPEP, or Gangs of the People. This is a rival coalition that emerged in opposition to G9. It's a looser alliance of gangs based primarily in Cité Solier, Village de Dieu, and Grand Ravine areas. They're also more decentralized than G9, with figures like Gabriel Jean-Pierre, nicknamed T. Gabriel, and Johnson André, nicknamed Izo, sharing influence. And they have focused primarily on kidnapping and extortion operations. Overall, though, Haitian gangs have developed capabilities that increasingly resemble those of insurgent forces or paramilitaries. For example, in terms of weapon systems that they use, it includes, everything from AR-15s to AK-37s to Galils and various other types of semi-automatic pistols. They've also got their hands on anti-personnel grenades and improvised explosive devices, as well as 50 caliber machine guns and some grenades and other types of explosives. They have evolved tactically over the years as well. They have coordinated multi-gang operations against police stations, for example, what took place in January to March of 2024, as well as the use of technicals, which are pickup trucks with mounted machine guns. They have also taken part in sophisticated ambush tactics and defensive fortification. They have teams of motorcycle-based quick reaction teams as well, and they do create major blockades that are capable of controlling major transportation areas. In terms of command structure, at least from what we can tell from our vantage point here, they're increasingly hierarchical with specialized roles beneath. They do like to use encrypted communications, and they have their own levels of intelligence gathering networks, which includes informants within both the police and the Haitian government. And this includes evidence of tactical training, possibly from former military or police personnel. The proliferation of military-grade weapons among Haiti's gangs has multiple sources. For example, a lot of this is trafficked internationally. Weapons primarily enter from routes from Florida and Jamaica, with secondary sources from Venezuela and Colombia. The Dominican Republic border is also a very key area. Despite their tightened security, the porous border facilitates weapons flow, particularly from bribes to border officials. This also includes diversion from legal sources, documented cases of weapons disappearing from police and private sector inventories. And all of this may include some level of political patronage. There's historical evidence that suggests that some political figures have supplied weapons to allied gangs. A 2023 UN panel of experts identified 140 distinct weapon shipments intercepted and en route to Haiti between 2021 and 2023, primarily originating from U.S. ports. The militarization of Haiti's gangs has transformed the security landscape from one of criminal violence to something more closely resembling a civil conflict. Major roads connecting Port-au-Prince to other regions are subject to gang checkpoints where tolls are collected. Entire neighborhoods have become inaccessible to state authorities, with gangs establishing parallel government structures. Gangs control or regularly block access to Vero Terminal, which is Port-au-Prince's main fuel entry point, sections of the maritime port, major hospitals including General Hospital, and key bridges and intersections including the Pont Rouge and Martessan crossings. There are some key ways in which the gangs operate, make money, and spread influence. For example, the Center of Analysis and Research in Human Rights documented 2,490 kidnappings in 2023, a 46% increase from 2022. Sexual violence is also a strategy of these gangs. UN Women estimates that 90% of women in gang-controlled areas have experienced sexual violence, often used as a tool of territorial control or revenge. In 2023 alone, the UN estimated that 3,600 gang-related deaths took place. And all of this has led to the displacement of around 300,000 people, with makeshift displacement camps being vulnerable to further attacks. After years of deteriorating security and following formal requests from Haiti's de facto government, the UN Security Council authorized a multinational security support mission through Resolution 2699, and this was in October of 23. Unlike previous interventions that we've mentioned already in this video, this is not a UN peacekeeping operation. It's largely led by Kenya, who agreed to run the mission, with deployments beginning in June of 24. And this operates under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, permitting the USO force beyond self-defense. This force is also under direct Kenyan command rather than the UN Blue Helmet leadership. This is initially a one-year mandate, but it's renewable based on conditions, meaning that, at least at the time that this video is being recorded, that's in mid-April of 25, this is almost up. The time is almost up. Kenya committed to providing over 1,000 personnel, predominantly National Police Service officers with specialized training in urban operations. As of April 2025, approximately 600 of those officers have been deployed. Jamaica, Belize, Bahamas, Barbados have also committed some specialized police units as well. Guatemala has also pledged some personnel. The MSS brings significant but very limited capabilities. This is predominantly a police force with urban operations experience, not conventional military units. In terms of equipment, they come with some armored personnel carriers, though the Kenyan contingent deployed with only 16 APCs. They have standard police weaponry with mostly assault rifles and shotguns. They have very limited crowd control equipment, including tear gas and water cannons. They also have some rudimentary surveillance systems to include drones, as well as communications equipment. Their mandate is actually fairly broad, especially for the size of this force. They are to create security conditions for political process, protect critical infrastructure, support H&P operations, conduct joint operations against gangs, and secure humanitarian corridors. Obviously, they're not going to do that with the size of the force that they have. The MSS has already faced some very significant obstacles. For example, the force size. The planned 2,000 personnel force is widely considered inadequate given the scale of the security challenge. By comparison, the UN security presence that was early in the 2000s included over 9,000 troops and police. This force is also lacking in intelligence on the local gangs, as well as the structures that exist within the country and civilian relationships. There are also some significant language barriers. Few Kenyan personnel speak French or Haitian Creole, complicating community engagement. There's also a complex issue with urban warfare, where densely populated urban areas with narrow streets and complex terrain favor the defender with local knowledge. There's also unclear parameters for the use of force, with concerns of either excessive or insufficient aggression by this Kenyan contingent. And there's also finally a perception issue. Significant portions of the Haitian population view foreign forces with suspicion based on negative experience from previous missions. Historical precedent suggests that significant risks in foreign military engagement in Haiti. For example, the previous major UN mission in Haiti left a complex and often very negative legacy. Scientific consensus indicates that UN personnel from Nepal introduced cholera to Haiti following the 2010 earthquake, which resulted in over 10,000 deaths. The UN acknowledged its responsibility but provided very limited compensation. There are also over 100 documented cases of sexual abuse by peacekeepers, with very minimal accountability. Despite 13 years of presence, the UN security operation failed to establish any kind of sustainable security institutions. And Haiti's urban areas often do present significant challenges for foreign forces. The high population density, with approximately 35,000 per square kilometer, as well as limited formal mapping of informal settlements, complex networks of alleyways and improvised structures, and the difficulty of distinguishing combatants from civilians all pose major challenges. There's also some level of popular resistance. Significant portions of Haitian civil society oppose foreign military presence, including very influential religious leaders and political movements. Foreign forces typically emphasize stability over justice, potentially entrenching rather than addressing the underlying power dynamics as well. For example, the MSS lacks metrics for success for a defined exit strategy. That's not good. Security operations without parallel political progress risk creating dependency or backlash. In effect, it's a mission without a goal. Previous security improvements in Haiti have proven to be temporary, reverting once foreign forces reverting back to the previous form once the foreign forces withdraw. The United States in all of this maintains a significant but still very deliberately limited engagement with Haiti's security crisis. The U.S. did pledge $210 million to the MSS, covering approximately 60% of the mission's initial budget. The U.S. has also facilitated logistical transportation, communications equipment, and intelligence sharing. They've also provided some limited training through some of the different police units, through international narcotics and law enforcement affairs programs. And the U.S. has also increased maritime patrols focused on weapons trafficking and migration. However, obviously, there are several very key factors that compel larger U.S. military involvement. Continued deterioration is driving increased migration flows to U.S. shores. The spillover effects threatening the Dominican Republic and wider Caribbean security is also a major concern. If the Kenya-led mission proves ineffective or withdraws prematurely, then the risk of progress being undone is potentially unavoidable. There are also mass casualties or famine conditions that creates political pressure for intervention. There have also been several different U.S. interventions in Haiti in the past. We've already mentioned the occupation from 1915 to 1934. There was also the operation from 1994 to 1995, which restored President Aristide. In 2004, the U.S. deployed Marines following Aristide's ouster. And in 2010, the post-earthquake humanitarian mission also tried to help. However, each mission has left very mixed legacies, simultaneously addressing immediate crises while often reinforcing dependency relationships and unsolved structural issues. Haiti's economic collapse represents not just a sudden crisis, but the culmination of centuries of exploitation, decades of mismanagement, and years of accelerating institutional failure. Understanding the economic dimensions of Haiti's current situation requires examining both the historical roots but also the modern manifestations of the systemic dysfunction. Haiti, again, was once considered to be the pearl of the Antilles. It was the world's richest colony. Haiti's post-independence colony was crippled, though, by the independence debt levied by France, equivalent to approximately $21 billion in currency. This debt was only fully repaid in 1947, and that fundamentally altered Haiti's developmental trajectory. Now, the following stats are according to the World Bank and the IMF. The GDP of Haiti as of 2024 is approximately $14,000. That's the lowest in the Western Hemisphere and among the 25 poorest countries globally. The economy shrank by 1.7% in 2022, 3.2% in 2023, and is projected to contract again by 2.5% in 2024. Between 60 and 65% of the population lives below the poverty line. That's making just $3.65 a day, with 25% in extreme poverty that's living with only $2.15 a day. Haiti has a Gini coefficient of 0.61. That's one of the highest in the world, and that indicates extreme concentration of wealth. In terms of human development, Haiti is ranked 163rd of 191 countries according to the 2022 UNHDI. 4.9 million Haitians, that's nearly half of the population, face acute food insecurity. 1.4 million people are in emergency conditions. Parts of Cité Soleil periodically reach catastrophic hunger levels. Chronic malnutrition affects approximately 22% of children under 5. Haiti's economic collapse has stemmed from multiple interconnected factors. Of course, with the political instability that we've just discussed, and they average a new government every 18 months since independence. That's just not sustainable. They've also been dealing with a lot of foreign interference, from the U.S. occupations to structural adjustment programs and UN intervention. Natural disasters have absolutely not done Haiti any favors, and they have come at absolutely the worst times. The 2010 earthquake caused damages equivalent to 120% of Haiti's GDP. Hurricane Matthew and the 2021 earthquake further damaged agricultural regions. Transparency International ranks Haiti 155th out of 180 countries on its Corruption Perception Index. And over 98% deforestation has devastated agricultural potential and has increased vulnerability to natural disasters. Haiti's economic structure exhibits extreme fragility and informality, with limited productive sectors and a very high external dependency. According to the International Labor Organization, only 11 to 15% of Haitians work in the formal economy. Between 85 and 89% of Haitians are unemployed but informal, particularly within subsistence agriculture, which employs approximately 50% of workers, street vending and petty commerce, day labor and domestic services, transportation like tap-tap drivers and motorcycle taxis, as well as artisanal crafts and micro-enterprises. This informality creates chronic economic insecurities, with most workers lacking either a stable income, social protection, economic benefits, legal protections, or access to credit. Haiti's formal private sector is extremely limited. For example, with manufacturing primarily focused on apparel assembly and export processing zones, employing approximately 50,000 workers, and that's down from 100,000 in 2010. Tourism was once a significant sector and is now virtually non-existent due to the security concerns. Commercial agriculture has been severely limited by land fragmentation, lack of irrigation, and poor infrastructure. Banking, telecommunications, and retail sectors are dominated by a small number of family-owned conglomerates. The Heritage Foundation's 2023 Index of Economic Freedom ranks Haiti 158th out of 177 countries, citing particular weaknesses in property rights, judicial effectiveness, and business freedom. Economic instability has accelerated the resource exodus as well. Over 80% of Haitians with university education eventually emigrate. Many Haitian businesses have relocated operations to the Dominican Republic, Panama, or Miami. A 2023 study by the Inter-American Development Bank estimated that Haiti loses approximately $1.2 billion annually in potential economic activity due to emigration of skilled workers. Haiti's economy relies heavily on its diaspora abroad. $4.4 billion US dollars in 2023, which is equivalent to 32% of its GDP, came through remittance. The primary sources of that population are within the United States, which is about 65%. Canada has about 15% of the population, and France at 5%, with the Dominican Republic also at 5%. Approximately 31% of households receive regular remittances, and the primary use is for consumption, be it food, education, or healthcare, rather than productive investment. Haiti's energy infrastructure is exceptionally vulnerable. Haiti has no domestic petroleum production and imports 100% of its fuel needs. The Varot terminal in Port-au-Prince handles approximately 70% of those fuel imports. And since 2021, the G9 Gang Alliance has intermittently blockaded Varot, creating severe fuel shortages across the country. Haiti's fragile electric grid also relies heavily on diesel generators. Fuel shortages reduce availability to 2 to 3 hours per day in many areas. This has created cascading effects, with hospitals operating on generators that have been forced to reduce services or even close outright. Water pumping stations cannot operate. Food transportation is also severely limited. By April of 2024, black market fuel prices, it reached $15 per gallon in Port-au-Prince, approximately 5 times the official price. Haiti's food system faces multiple simultaneous crises. Haiti imports 80 to 85% of its rice consumption, 50% of other staple foods as well. They also face a lot of domestic agricultural challenges, with small, fragmented land holdings, the average size being about 1.5 hectares, limited irrigation. Only 10% of potentially irrigable land has water access. Severe soil erosion affecting 85% of the country, with limited access to inputs such as seed and fertilizer and technologies. And on top of all of this, climate vulnerability, with droughts and hurricanes being frequent. The gangs are also in control of major highways, and this has severely restricted food movement. And the routes between urban markets and agricultural production zones are often also patrolled. Food markets in Port-au-Prince operate sporadically due to violence, and many have been closed permanently. The combined effect of supply disruptions and monetary instability has generated severe inflation. For example, in terms of general inflation, it has been 41.2% year over year as of January of 24. In terms of food inflation, that's 53.7% for the same period. The Haitian gourd lost 54% of its value to the US dollar between 2021 and 2024. And this has led to widespread price increases across pretty much every type of staple food. The World Food Program estimates that the average cost of basic food per basic food basket has increased by 68% in 2023 alone, putting adequate nutrition beyond the reach for most households. Haiti's public sector has experienced near complete fiscal collapse, undermining already limited service deliverability. On top of all of this, the Haitian government's capacity to generate revenue has deteriorated dramatically. In terms of tax collection, revenue as a percentage of GDP has fallen from 13% in 2018 to approximately 5 to 6% in 2023 to 2024. In 2024, the national budget was approximately $2.1 billion, but actual revenue creation is projected to cover less than 40% of that amount. This fiscal collapse has devastated already limited public services. Over 50% of public health facilities are non-operational or severely limited in function. Healthcare workers frequently go unpaid for months. Public schools operate irregularly. Teachers' salaries are often delayed by 3 to 6 months. The public water company called DNIPA operates at minimal capacity, serving less than 25% of the population. State electric utilities also provide power to less than 45% of the country and only for limited hours. Police salary delays have also contributed to mass demoralization and desertion. Haiti's financial system is showing some obvious signs of severe distress. 5 banks now control 85% of assets, with high concentration leading to the small elite. Overall, Haiti's government also relies very heavily on external support. International donors fund approximately 35% of government operations. Essential services are increasingly provided by NGOs and international organizations rather than the state. Security conditions prevent effective deployment of assistance in many areas. Gang violence has transformed Haiti's economic landscape through both direct and indirect costs. The UN estimates that over $4.2 billion in physical damage to infrastructure, businesses, and homes since 2021 has impacted Haiti. In terms of ransoms and extortions, conservative estimates indicate that gangs have extracted somewhere between $200 to $300 million annually through kidnappings and protection payments. And all of this has created lost productivity, with business closures, displacement, and restricted movements all costing an estimated $1.5 to $2 billion in annual economic output. For the gangs, kidnapping has evolved into a structured criminal enterprise. Initially focused on wealthy Haitians and foreigners, it now extends to middle class and even working class victims. And these range from $5,000 to even $1 million ransoms depending on the victim. Beyond the direct financial costs, the kidnapping also has accelerated business relocations, reduced the economic activity as people limit their movement, increased security costs for businesses and households, and driven skilled professionals to emigrate from Haiti. All this insecurity is creating some very negative cycles. For example, infrastructure damage leads to reduced productivity, which leads to lower tax revenue, which leads to weaker security forces, and that leads to more insecurity. Business closures lead to unemployment, which leads to more poverty, which leads to recruitment into gangs, which leads to more insecurity. Displacement of people also leads to abandoned property, which leads to territorial control by gangs, and that leads to even more displacement. These are compounding problems that are making the situation in Haiti much, much, much worse. Haiti's economy increasingly depends on external support, creating complex dynamics of dependency and accountability. For example, approximately $1.1 billion annually has come from official developmental assistance. Major donors include the United States, the European Union, Canada, and other multilateral development banks. Humanitarian assistance has also footed about $719 million in emergency humanitarian funding in 2023. International assistance faces significant implementation challenges as well. Approximately 60% of planned development projects reported implementation delays or cancellations due to security issues in 2023. Limited government capacity to manage and coordinate aid flows have also impacted things. There's also parallel governance systems, and so most aid bypasses government systems entirely, undermining state authority. U.S. aid alone manages over 150 separate projects in Haiti, at least that was while U.S. aid still existed, and there are still corruption concerns within what remains of the Haitian government, with Transparency International estimating that 15 to 30% of aid is lost due to corruption. Humanitarian convoys are also frequently hijacked, with aid workers targeted for kidnapping. Non-governmental organizations play an outsized role in Haiti's economy, leading to its nickname, the Republic of NGOs. NGOs provide approximately 80% of basic services of health, education, and water. The NGO sector in Haiti employs approximately 130,000 Haitians, making it one of the largest formal employers. However, this has also led to accountability challenges with limited coordination or oversight of NGO activity. With approximately 70% of young Haitians unemployed or underemployed, gang recruitment offers an economic opportunity. And that's going to be a very challenging thing to tackle, especially considering these compounding issues that we've just talked about. The U.S. domestic political support for a multi-decade, multi-billion-dollar commitment is certainly a big question mark. And we'll talk more about that at the end of this video. Understanding these social dimensions are very important, and a lot of it really revolves around class, and that class structure has existed for centuries. Haiti exhibits one of the most pronounced social stratification systems in the Western Hemisphere, with divisions along economic, racial, linguistic, and geographic lines that date back to its colonial and revolutionary past. Haiti's social hierarchy remains deeply entrenched despite political upheavals. The wealthiest 1% of Haitians control approximately 45% of the nation's wealth. Haiti's economic elites consist primarily of about 15 to 20 families of historical, quote, mulatto elites dating back to the post-independence period. period. Syrian and Lebanese merchant families who arrived in the early 20th century now control major export-import businesses. A small number of more wealthy families connected to political power and government contracts also exist in this sphere. These families all control key economic sectors, including the import and export businesses, particularly within food and consumer goods, telecommunications, banking, manufacturing, and media outlets. The concentration of wealth is largely within the geography of Port-au-Prince, where elite enclaves like Petite Ville or La Boule sit in stark contrast to vast informal settlements like Cité-Solier or Martesson. Gated communities, private security, and international schooling further separates the elites from the broader population. Haiti's complex racial history also shapes its current relations. After independence, divisions emerged between formerly free people of color and formerly enslaved Black Haitians. While not as rigid as the past, today correlations between lighter skin and higher social class persist. French fluency, which is among 5% of the population, versus fluency in Haitian Creole, which is spoken by everybody, remains to be a very significant social divider and gatekeeper to educational and professional advancement. Now, in terms of just general population stats, approximately 57% of Haitians live in rural areas, though urbanization has accelerated due to rural poverty and security concern. Rural departments receive disproportionately little public investment, with estimates suggesting rural areas receive less than 20% of public resources, despite containing more than half the population. Because of this urbanization and push to urban areas, the capital of Port-au-Prince contains approximately 25% of Haiti's total population. That's about 2.7 million people and a population of 11.7. The 2010 earthquake, which killed somewhere shy of 300,000 people, primarily in Port-au-Prince, highlights really the vulnerability of this urban centralization as well. There are some very interesting surveys to discuss here as well. One government poll in 2023 found that only 7% of Haitians expressed trust in the government. Trust in the national police declined from 53% in 2014 to just 18% in 2023. Only 15% of Haitians expressed confidence in the justice system. UN entities face an approval rating below 30%, and voter turnout declined from 78% in 2006 to 21% in the last presidential election. The gang violence has also generated unprecedented internal displacement. The International Organization for Migration estimates that over 360,000 people are currently internally displaced within Haiti. Approximately 80% of displacement originates from metropolitan Port-au-Prince. 34% of the population live in spontaneous settlements, with 41% with host families and 25% in formal displacement sites. Women and girls comprise 53% of the displaced population and face heightened vulnerability due to sexual violence from gangs. What begins as temporary displacement is increasingly becoming a semi-permanent situation, with average displacement now exceeding somewhere around 18 months. With a lot of Haitians being able to emigrate from Haiti, the Haitian diaspora is continuing to grow through both regular and irregular migration. Approximately 2 million Haitians live abroad, with the primary destination again being the United States with 1.1 million Haitians, the Dominican Republic with somewhere around 500,000, Canada, France, and other French territories, Chile, and Brazil. However, for them to be able to emigrate, whether legally or illegally, they have to go through very irregular routes that has increased dramatically. The maritime route to Florida, for example, has increased in usage by 430% from 2021 to 2023. Journeys through the Darien Gap between Colombia and Panama have increased by 540% in the same period. At least 4,500 Haitians have died or disappeared in migration attempts in 2023. However, just because they managed to get out doesn't mean that they're able to stay out. Between 2021 and 2023, approximately 41,000 Haitians were deported to Haiti from the United States, Mexico, the Bahamas, and other countries that they had left back to Haiti. Because of this mass emigration, Approximately 80% of Haitians with a tertiary education often eventually emigrate. An estimated 300,000 Haitian children are being raised by extended families while parents work abroad. 31% of households receive remittances, creating economic stratification between recipient and non-recipient households. And deported migrants often face a stigma, social isolation, and sometimes violence upon return. Haiti's education system, already one of the region's weakest, has deteriorated dramatically. UNESCO estimates that approximately 50% of school-aged children are currently out of school. Over 1,700 schools have closed due to insecurity in 2022. 85% of schools are private, creating significant financial barriers to education. And only 55% of primary school teachers have basic qualifications. Schools in gang-controlled areas face extortion, recruitment of students, and threats to teachers. Haiti's health infrastructure faces comprehensive failure. 30% of health facilities nationwide are now non-operational. In Port-au-Prince, only 3 of 20 major hospitals function at full capacity. Haiti has approximately 2.3 doctors per 10,000 people, compared to the WHO recommendation of 23 doctors per 10,000 people. An estimated 75% of medical graduates leave Haiti within 5 years of completing their training. Maternal mortality rate, this has led to massive mortality rates with a maternal mortality rate of 480 per 100,000 live births. That's the highest in the Western Hemisphere. This has also led to the resurgence of preventable diseases, including cholera, diphtheria, and measles due to interruption in vaccination programs. All of this is also creating a mental health crisis in Haiti, with studies indicating that 40 to 60% of adults in gang-affected areas show symptoms of PTSD. Yet Haiti has only 23 psychiatrists nationwide. Doctors Without Borders reports that their facilities in Haiti operate at 300% capacity, with patients frequently turned away due to resource constraints. Access to clean water and sanitation has also deteriorated dramatically. Only 65% of the population has access to an improved water source, down from 74% in 2015. In Port-au-Prince, gang control of key infrastructure has reduced piped water access from 61% to 37% since 2021. Only 26% of Haitians have access to improved sanitation facilities. And this is leading to a spike in waterborne illnesses that accounts for approximately 20% of child mortality. In terms of the religious breakdown, and this is where some religious organizations have stepped in to provide some level of support, approximately 55% of the population is Catholic, 30% is Protestant, with widespread voodoo practice alongside Christian faith. Churches are viewed as a sanctuary, places of worship that often serve as a displacement shelter and aid distribution points. Catholic bishops and Protestant leaders remain among the few very widely respected authority figures in the country. However, voodoo also provides an alternative social organization with mutual aid. Religious institutions still, though, face their own challenges, with over 180 churches being attacked or destroyed since 2021 and multiple priests or pastors kidnapped. Haiti's traditional media infrastructure, like radio, newspaper, and television, is critically weakened, especially due to the escalating violence and the economic turmoil. Many newsrooms have either shut down or relocated following the direct threats from gangs, severely limiting the flow of reliable information. Journalists routinely face threats, harassment, kidnappings, and assassinations, placing Haiti among the most hazardous environments for reporters in the hemisphere. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, or CPJ, over a dozen journalists have been murdered in Haiti since 2021, underscoring the extreme risks faced by media professionals. Local radio, historically one of the most trusted and accessible news sources, especially in rural communities, struggles to operate in these conditions. Numerous radio stations have been forced off the air or have their equipment damaged, disrupting essential communication channels during crises and isolating entire communities from critical information. Internet access in Haiti remains severely limited, with penetration rates below 40%, predominantly concentrated in urban centers. Rural communities suffer disproportionately in this case, relying heavily on less stable means of communication. Many Haitians depend on social media platforms like WhatsApp or Facebook for news, inadvertently fostering echo chambers and amplifying unchecked rumors and misinformation. Gangs frequently target cell towers and internet infrastructure, deliberately disrupting communication flows and networks to exert their control over the population. In gang-controlled neighborhoods, residents often face intentional information blackouts, furthering their isolation and vulnerability. Armed gangs are very adept at exploiting social media to spread fear, spreading threats and spreading disinformation, regularly posting graphic content online to assert dominance and intimidate their populace. You might remember some videos floating around featuring Barbecue's Gang G9 showing gang members eating human people. This is just another case of attempting to signal something that is more threatening and to stoke fear. The absence of reliable news sources allow these narratives to proliferate unchecked, manipulating public perception and exacerbating. Political elites and external actors have also been accused of disseminating misinformation campaigns aimed at discrediting rivals and influencing the public opinion. This, combined with widespread media illiteracy and deep-seated mistrust of institutions, leaves Haiti's population particularly susceptible to fake news and conspiracy theories, complicating additional efforts to reconcile differences and build a government. Despite these immense risks, independent Haitian journalists, activists, and diaspora organizations continue to document what's going on and advocating for reform. Exiled media entities and independent platforms on YouTube, for example, have emerged as crucial outlets for unfiltered reporting, often providing the only reliable source of news coverage. Diaspora communities in the United States and Canada serve really as essential informational conduits, amplifying the voices of Haitian grassroots organizations, funding independent journalism, and advocating for international awareness and support. Bottom line, the Haitian government lacks cohesive and transparent communication strategies, mainly because there isn't really a government to have a strategy for. Official press briefings are very infrequent, often delayed, and sometimes contradictory, exacerbating public mistrust and confusion. This information void allows gangs and foreign entities and other opportunistic actors to propagate their narratives unchecked and further destabilize the country. Information control is pivotal in Haiti's complex dynamic. Gangs strategically are using fear, surveillance, and misinformation to isolate and dominate communities, while there are historical instances like the UN mishandling and concealing the outbreak of cholera. And this builds a distrust amongst Haitians of foreign entities that might be there, under the guise of helping Haitians and pushing them closer to gangs. Haiti's infrastructure, which was already vulnerable before that absolutely devastating earthquake in 2010 and again in 2021, it's now critically degraded or completely destroyed in many regions. Essential systems like electricity, sanitation, water supply, and healthcare are collapsing nationwide, significantly exacerbating Haiti's humanitarian, economic, and security crises. Haiti has approximately 4,000 kilometers of paved road, but the majority of the road network, totaling over 12,000 kilometers, remains unpaved, deteriorated, or impassable. Port-au-Prince's main thoroughfares are regularly obstructed either by gangs or barricades, isolating neighborhoods from critical services, humanitarian aid, or commerce. In rural regions, roads are often rendered unusable during heavy rainfall, further isolating those communities. Persistent fuel shortages and security threats make public transportation unreliable or outright unavailable. The Haitian National Police and aid workers frequently rely on UN vehicles or motorcycles to navigate these dangerous urban environments. And the severe lack of road infrastructure hampers economic recovery and humanitarian operations. This creates some significant internal isolation. The Toussaint-Louverture International Airport is located in Port-au-Prince, and that serves as Haiti's primary aviation hub. The airport was temporarily shut down in 2024 due to gang violence and gunfire on the tarmac. Although reopened under stringent security, the frequency and reliability of international flights remains significantly compromised. I've visited Haiti a couple of times, and this is the airport that I flew in and out of. The Cap-Haitien International Airport, which is Haiti's second largest airport, is located in the north of Haiti. It offers limited regional flights and occasionally serves as an alternative to the main international airport, when conditions in the capital deteriorate. There are other regional airports, but are very small, inadequately equipped, and unsustainable for significant logistical operations or large-scale evacuations. And because of this, Haiti's current air transport capacity is insufficient for sustained humanitarian missions or extensive foreign deployments without extensive logistical support. Port-au-Prince Seaport, Haiti's main maritime entry port, is considered to be frequently non-operational due to gang-controlled access to the roads and the docks, widespread theft of cargo, as well as cargo extortion, and the recurring labor strikes caused by unpaid wages and hazardous working conditions. The Ferro fuel terminal, which is critical for the national fuel distribution, has repeatedly fallen into seizures and blockades by different armed groups. Though Cap Haitien port remains comparatively stable, it lacks the capacity to accommodate substantial imports or military deployments. Other regional ports like Jacmel or Gonaives face significant operational limitations, including inadequate facilities, shallow docking areas, and persistent security threats. Haiti's national electricity grid is severely impaired, providing less than 5 hours of electricity daily to most of the population, with some regions receiving none at all. Hospitals, businesses, and humanitarian organizations are dependent on generators, which are frequently incapacitated due to fuel shortages. Water and sanitation infrastructure have decayed dramatically, contributing to widespread public health crises, including cholera and other waterborne diseases. Urban areas rely heavily on informal water vendors and lack adequate sewage systems. Telecommunications networks, including cell towers and fiber optic cables, are limited and routinely targeted, again, by gangs, further isolating rural communities. The Haitian-Dominican border extends approximately 390 kilometers. It's heavily fortified on the Dominican side, with ongoing construction of a 170-kilometer border wall designed to control migration, smuggling, and the spillover of violence. Historical, robust cross-border trade, which provided Haiti with essential food and goods, is now significantly disrupted. Key border crossings experience frequent closures due to security concerns and diplomatic friction. Despite these barriers, informal smuggling persists, often controlled by organized criminal groups or corrupt officials. The Dominican Republic also continues to conduct widespread deportation of Haitian migrants, including vulnerable populations such as pregnant women and unaccompanied minors, further straining Haiti's humanitarian crisis. Haiti's severely compromised infrastructure poses significant challenges for any external intervention, especially for the United States, or complicating humanitarian assistance. Reliable corridors for transporting goods, personnel, or evacuees are virtually non-existent, and that requires foreign forces to prioritize securing airports and seaports to establish those logistical footholds. Haiti's situation has shifted from long-term stability to acute collapse. It's 2025 and the country has no elected leaders, no functioning government, and its critical infrastructure is under the control of armed groups. Each passing week without action exacerbates displacement, hunger, and consolidates gang dominance. Although substantial reforms, elections, and recovery efforts require years, the humanitarian and security crises demand immediate action. Haiti's geography to the United States really underscores its significance to the United States. It's 700 miles from Miami. That's closer than Washington, D.C. is to Chicago, and a direct flight from Miami to Port-au-Prince is about 2 hours. Maritime routes from the Florida Keys to northern Haiti take less than 36 hours by a small vessel, which is frequently used by migrants and smugglers. This proximity means that escalations in Haiti can rapidly lead to refugee influxes and disruptions such as gang smuggling, arms trafficking, drug trafficking, and general instability that can quickly affect even the broader Caribbean region and the United States. Under optimal conditions, which granted rarely exist, travel within Haiti remains challenging. Driving from Port-au-Prince to Cap Haitien, which is approximately 200 kilometers, that's 124 miles, typically requires about 4 to 6 hours, which is often longer due to poor road conditions and frequent gang checkpoints. Port-au-Prince to Les Cayes, which is about 124 miles, typically takes anywhere from 5 to 7 hours, with delays also common during rainy seasons or blockades. Port-au-Prince to the Dominican Republic border, which is about 50 miles, still takes about 2 to 3 hours, and is often prolonged by security issues and border closures. Now, speaking of time, this is the longest video that I've ever made, so if you're still here, then like this video because you're absolutely a real one. So what should the United States do about any of this? Clearly, a U.S. intervention would be very unpopular within Haiti. And it's not just within Haiti, but also probably within the United States. There's no real appetite for additional foreign involvement from either side of the political aisle within the United States or within Haiti. Americans don't want to worry about another crisis in another country, while Haitians don't want America or any other foreign power to come in and dictate things to them. However, one thing is clear: the status quo is completely unacceptable. The fact that Haiti is forgotten and that folks often don't realize the true extent to just how much of a failed state it is horrendous. Heck, even while researching for this video, I don't think I really understood just how bad things have gotten. And I've been to Haiti a couple times, and I like to keep an eye on things, on how things are going. So someone has to do something, but the question is who and what? The US is arguably in the best position in terms of capability and proximity. There's also a large Haitian population within the United States that could be very helpful in guiding policy. But behind the United States, there are not a lot of other options. Yes, Kenya has provided some troops, but they're nowhere near enough to matter, and they might be leaving in just a couple months anyway. To fix Haiti, this would require the investment of tens of thousands of troops and all kinds of other personnel, potentially well over 100,000 people in total, to secure the critical infrastructure, combat and destroy the gangs, and then reestablish a central government and begin to rebuild critical infrastructure and core government institutions. This would take years, if not decades. It would likely cost the country that steps in a lot in terms of time, effort, and treasure, with no promise of any kind of a return. Which is why I don't think that the United States will do anything, at least under this current administration, unless it's convinced that tackling Haiti is key to tackling or rolling back other security threats like cartels or any kind of great powers like China or Russia. It could also allow the US to project further power into the Caribbean Sea. Either way, nobody else is coming. The EU has their own problems, and so does Kenya. We're really lucky that they've stepped up at all. The UN has lost a lot of goodwill over the years, and they haven't been effective anyway. Latin America lacks the capability and wealth to do anything either. It's honestly probably an American job if anything is going to happen at all. And America has some experience in projects like this. For, of course, Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam are examples people like to point at, but Germany and Japan and South Korea are also examples where America has built thriving democracies that have grown their countries into the modern age. Germany, Japan, and South Korea did not have any kind of democratic tradition. And while, of course, South Korea had their bout with a bit of a dictatorship in the 70s, and today they have their own constitutional issue, they've still managed to grow into one of the world's largest economies after one of the most destructive wars in the past century. Haiti has the potential to do the same thing, but they're going to need some level of external help, whether Haitians like it or not. The issues that they're dealing with are compounding onto each other, and it's going to require an outside actor to step in, break them out of those compounding problems, and help kind of push them along in the right direction until eventually they can begin to govern and, run with things themselves. But that often requires a decades-long project and building a new tradition of democracy and economy. Until either America steps in or somehow somebody else manages to step in and fix things, this whole situation will continue to spiral, and 11 million Haitians will continue to suffer. So with that cheerful news, and with all this time that we've spent in this video, what do you think should be done, and who do you think should step up and how? Like if you stayed this long in this video, and share with somebody that you think will find this interesting, and subscribe for more analysis like this. It will not be this long. This is a very long video, and it's taken me a long time to film this. It's going to take me a long time to edit this thing. But either way, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.